develop faster EV chargers. This comes as President Yoon urges private sector-led regulatory reform. Amid an apparent power struggle within the People Power Party, a local court calls the ruling bloc's transition to an emergency leadership invalid. Current PPP Emergency Committee chief fires back with an appeal. To mark 30 years of diplomatic ties between South Korea and Vietnam, Seoul's foreign minister called for closer bilateral cooperation. Hello, hope you're wrapping up the week well. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. The government seeks to cut red tape to aid innovation in Korean businesses. A number of the changes include building charging infrastructure for electric cars and reducing or eliminating penalties for minor violations. Choi Min-jung starts us off.
Helping companies grow without obstacles getting in their way. This is what President Yoon Suk-yeol defines as one of the most important roles the government has. And this will be possible by removing or changing regulations.
현실에 맞지 않는 그 법령 한 줄, 이 규제 하나가 기업의 생사를 갈릴 수 있습니다. 이러한 규제를 혁신하기 위해서는 기업인과 민간 전문가들이 혁신 과정의 들러리가 아니고 주인공이 돼야 합니다.
President Yoon on Friday presided over the first meeting on regulatory innovation and strategy at a robotics company in the city of Daegu. He emphasized that true innovation comes from freedom and creativity, and added regulations should be innovated under the leadership of the private sector. At the top of the agenda is revising environmental regulations to increase competitiveness and investment. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy has decided to grant safety certification for ultra-fast electric vehicle chargers. This means charging time could be reduced from an hour to just 20 minutes. The Finance and Justice Ministry is also pushing to ease economic penalties on businesses, which President Yoon said will be in line with the global standard. The ministries are working to replace criminal penalties with administrative sanctions or even abolish the penalties altogether for companies that violate laws that aren't too dire. The president vowed to take charge and preside over the meetings together with the prime minister to ensure the private sector has more freedom. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
President Yoon asked for active efforts from the U.S. state of Indiana to ensure Korean firms enjoy equal benefits as their American counterparts. He was making note of the recent enactment of the Inflation Reduction Act and mounting concerns during a meeting with the governor of Indiana in Seoul on Friday. In response, Eric Holcomb said he is grateful that global Korean firms have entered Indiana and contributed to the development of its state economy and job creation. Earlier this month, President Joe Biden signed into law a $430 billion bill which ends $7,500 worth of tax credits for EVs assembled outside of North America. Seoul and Washington agreed to keep communication live and active, especially ahead of the alliance's 70th anniversary next year. This comes following a meeting between U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Cronenberg and Yo Seung-bae, South Korea's Deputy Foreign Minister for Political Affairs. The two diplomats reportedly discussed bilateral relations and peninsula issues, including North Korea's nuclear threats. They also touched on efforts for successful in-depth discussions on ways to enhance joint extended deterrence capability at the EDSCG meeting next month. The U.S. also reaffirmed its support for South Korea's plan for North Korea's denuclearization. South Korea and Japan's senior foreign ministry officials met to discuss the ongoing issue of forced labor during World War II. Director General for Asian and Pacific Affairs Lee Sang-ryul met with his Japanese counterpart Takehiro Funakoshi in Tokyo on Friday morning. He explained Seoul's endeavors to solve the issue and stressed the need for Japan to respond with sincerity. Japan's foreign ministry released a statement saying it has explained its unwavering stance. Tokyo has continued to insist the dispute was settled in a treaty signed back in 1965. Back in 2018, the South Korean court ruled that Japanese firms must pay compensation to Korean wartime forced labor victims, as the treaty doesn't cover victims' rights to ask for individual compensation. This year marks the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between South Korea and Vietnam. Seoul's foreign ministry called for closer cooperation, highlighting the importance of the friendship built over decades. Min Suk-hyun tells us more.
To commemorate 30 years of diplomatic ties between South Korea and Vietnam, an event was held here in Seoul on Friday evening. Hosted by the Vietnam Embassy in Seoul, the event was also organized in line with Vietnam's National Independence Day on September 2nd. South Korean Foreign Minister Park Jin attended the reception along with other senior government officials and guests from business organizations. While giving a congratulatory speech, Minister Park placed great importance on Korea's relations with Vietnam, saying their ties have developed rapidly in various areas over the past 30 years. He explained the Korean government was placing great emphasis on strengthening ties with ASEAN members, especially with its key ASEAN partner, Vietnam.
Building on our achievements over the last 30 years, I will redouble my efforts to ensure this year becomes a milestone in our bilateral relations. The Yoon Suk-yeol government has placed its top priority on developing the ties of partnership with the ASEAN countries, and Vietnam is a key partner among the ASEAN nations.
Vietnam is South Korea's fourth largest trading partner, and as of last year, the trade volume between the two countries reached $80.7 billion. Seoul's top diplomat hoped for closer cooperation in the future, adding that he looks forward to building future-oriented ties based on their past achievements. Vietnamese ambassador to South Korea also voiced support for broadening bilateral ties.
Is that Vietnam will attach greater importance and appreciation to the promotion of cooperative relations with the Republic of Korea. I strongly hope that the further promotion of our traditional areas of cooperation will take place in the robust expansion of the bilateral cooperation into new areas and with new partners.
Seoul's foreign ministry said various events will be held this year to commemorate the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations, which falls on December 22nd. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, a local court accepted the injunction request by former People Power Party Chair Chuseok to block the PPP switch to an emergency leadership. Current Emergency Committee Chairman of the ruling bloc filed an appeal in protest. Kim Bo-kyung has the latest.
Chuseok, the chairman of the People Power Party's Emergency Leadership Committee, is suspended from his duties as the Seoul Southern District Court ruled in favor of former chairman Lee Junseok on Friday. The decision came 16 days after ex-chief Lee had filed for an injunction against the party's transition to an emergency leadership system. According to the party charter, it can turn to an emergency leadership system when the chair position is vacant or if the Spring Council can no longer function, deeming it as a party emergency. At that time, Lee Junseok was suspended as chairman for 6 months over a sexual bribery scandal, yet technically still held his position. Yet the Spring Council members resigned from their positions, which led to the launching of an emergency committee. This is what the court deemed to be the reason for the party falling into what it called an emergency.
When Lee received the 6-month suspension from the Ethics Committee, floor leader Kwon Song-dong didn't see it as a vacancy, but an accident, and gave an authoritative interpretation that he can come back as chief 6 months later by launching the acting chief system. The court saw this as the reason for deciding that the Emergency Leadership Committee had violated party democracy.
Experts say the court's decision has made the situation very complicated.
This is the injunction, not the ruling for their main lawsuit. Until then, Ju Ho-young is still the emergency committee chairman, but cannot perform his duties. And Lee Junseok is still ex-chairman as there is an emergency committee chairman in place. He cannot do anything because the party membership has been suspended. Everything is up in the air.
The now suspended emergency committee chairman said the decision was absurd.
The court saying that it's not an emergency, even though the party said it was, is absurd. I cannot understand this decision. It has damaged the constitutional principle of guaranteeing the party's own autonomy. We filed an appeal immediately and will take all necessary legal steps.
Although the PPP has filed an appeal with the court's decision to side with former chairman Lee Chuseok, the party has fallen into confusion just around 10 days after the emergency leadership began. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics' new foldable phones are now available in 40 countries. The South Korean tech titan aims to sell 10 million of the latest Galaxy Z Flip and Folds to bring foldable smartphones into the mainstream. Ji-young fills us in.
Samsung is ready for another mainstream hit. Its latest fourth-generation Galaxy Flip and Fold series phones have been released in 40 countries.
We're doing everything we can to sell more than 10 million foldable phones this year.
And of course, I couldn't miss out on what the company calls the most durable and most powerful Galaxy foldables yet. Here in my hands, I have two brand new Samsung devices, Galaxy Z Flip 4 and Fold 4. So let's start the unboxing and check them out. The Z Flip 4's design is nearly identical to the previous model, but with slimmer frames and hinges. It also comes with a bigger battery that lasts up to 4 hours longer than the previous model. I have a Galaxy Z Flip 3 of my own, an easy-to-pocket clamshell that opens up into a full-size smartphone, and I pretty much enjoyed using it over the last year. But Z Flip 4's cover screen is much more useful compared to the previous model. It lets you make calls, reply to texts, and even take selfies in portrait mode without needing to open the phone. The new Galaxy Z Fold 4 is also lighter with a slimmer hinge. It comes with the wider main and cover screen, 45% more durable main display, upgraded cameras both on the back and under the display. With all these new features and despite soaring costs of production and shipping, Samsung has managed to keep price tags steady at the same levels as last year. Retail prices start at $999 for the Galaxy Z Flip 4 and $1,799 for the Galaxy Z Fold 4. I went out to a local Samsung store to see how people are finding them.
The Fold 4 costs around 2 million won, and so I did weigh up whether the monthly payments would be a bit of a burden. But what's more important is whether the device fits my needs for the next 2 or 3 years.
The Flip fits inside small bags when folded. It's bigger than other smartphones when opened, and the colors are pretty too.
According to a global industry analysis firm Counterpoint, despite slowdowns in major economies, the global foldable smartphone market is expected to grow by 73% this year compared to 2021. Samsung has the highest market share of around 62%, followed by some firms from China. But one expert says Samsung's biggest competitor will be Apple.
We expect Apple to enter the foldable phone market in 2024 or 2025 at the latest.
He added affordable prices will lead to larger sales for Samsung. Another expert says handset design and what technology they offer are also key factors.
As a first mover, Samsung Electronics should be leading the foldable smartphone market in order to survive. It should be overwhelmingly greater than other competitors in terms of design and technology.
Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korea continues to see an overall decline in the daily COVID-19 tally, but the number of severe cases reached the highest in months. Authorities will announce new measures for the Chuseok holidays, a period when these figures are expected to rise. Kim Jung-soo brings the updates.
South Korea reported 101,140 new cases of COVID-19 on Friday, the lowest number for a Friday in 4 weeks. However, the number of severe cases rose to 575, the highest since the end of April. There were also 81 more deaths reported. South Korean health authorities say they expect the number of severe cases to increase to as high as 20,000 a day after Chuseok in around 2 weeks, one of South Korea's biggest holidays. And as 20% of all patients are aged 60 or above, and with the fatality rate rising among that age group, officials say it's important that severe cases are treated quickly. Accordingly, at least 400 medical facilities that offer COVID-19 treatment will be open throughout the Chuseok holiday period. On some days, up to 1,500. Health authorities are also planning to increase the number of test facilities from 63 to 150 to detect new variants. A new analysis technique to determine variants sooner will be in place from September. Previously, it took up to 1 week for the result to come out. With the new technology, 1 day. Officials say 76 cases of the fast-spreading Centaurus variant have been detected in the country so far. Officials will come up with new guidelines for COVID-19 prevention measures during Chuseok, since this will be the first in the pandemic era without social distancing. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
The Seoul metropolitan government is launching a care service next month for people who live alone and have been discharged from the hospital after receiving surgery or treatment for broken bones. Any city resident can apply regardless of age or income. Based on an assessment of their needs, those who qualify will be assigned a care manager within 12 hours. They will help with tasks like chores, washing, and taking medication. The service runs on a trial basis until the end of this year. Anyone who needs it can apply as soon as 24 hours before leaving the hospital or as long as 30 days afterwards. For more info, check out the Seoul Metropolitan Government website. The popular recent K-dramas Our Blues and Extraordinary Attorney Woo have something in common. They both feature characters with disabilities. But how well do they represent the reality of this group in South Korea? Song Yoo-jin went out to find out more.
제 이름은 똑바로 읽어도 거꾸로 읽어도 우영우입니다. 기러기 토마토 스위스 인도인 별똥별 우영우.
The Korean drama Extraordinary Attorney Woo has become a sensation. It revolves around the life of the main character, Woo Young-woo, who has autism spectrum disorder.
저도 발달 장애이고.
She's the first Korean actress with Down syndrome in a drama series. Chung appeared in the drama Our Blues this year as the main character's sister, Young-hee. Woo and Chung both have disabilities. But the difference is that Chung is real while Woo is a fictional character. So when comparing Woo, who is a successful lawyer, to reality, there is a mismatch. Businesses in South Korea that have 50 or more employees are obligated to hire a certain number of disabled employees. But still, out of the 2.6 million disabled people in South Korea, only around 1/3 are employed. This is a so-called sheltered workshop for the disabled. People with disabilities can get job training and work here, but they only do simple repetitive tasks such as making masks or packaging dishcloths. Then one question arises. Are people with disabilities only capable of doing simple repetitive tasks? The answer is that it depends on the type of disability. Physically disabled people have a wider range of options. Judge Kim Dong-hyun, lawmakers Kim Ye-ji and Choi Hae-young prove this point. This coffee shop is another example. There's a special way to order your coffee here. This is because here, people with and without disabilities work together. At this cafe, half of its 12 staff members have disabilities. But this is not the case for those with intellectual impairments.
Those with intellectual disabilities have more difficulties in learning and adapting to new work. This wouldn't be a problem if companies have different positions for different types of disabilities. But because most of them tend to find someone who fits their standards, intellectually impaired people have very limited work they can do.
If more characters with disabilities appear in the media, it will naturally make the audience become familiar with the disabled and also foster a better understanding of them.
I can actually feel that the attitude of people around my daughter has changed after she appeared in Our Blues.
In terms of us, the general public, we should regard disability as a trait, not a flaw. And what should we do when we encounter disabled colleagues at work? Experts say rather than thinking about what we should be careful about, we should learn to go up to them and ask them directly of what they want and need.
저처럼 자신감 가지고 열심히 하면서 행복하게 살면서 돈도 벌고 사람들과 어울리지고 하면 돼요.
송유진, Arirang News.
Jeju is a major hotspot for locals seeking a scenic holiday getaway. Instead of just soaking in the beauty as tourists, some decided to use their skills as undersea divers to clean up the environment. Lee Si-woo joining the mission.
On a rainy day on Jeju Island, a group of people gather in wetsuits and bathing suits. They are here to do what's known as ploving. The name ploving is a portmanteau of plocka up, meaning pick up in Swedish, and diving. Ploving involves picking up ocean trash from underwater and from the beach. It's a trend among those who enjoy diving and want to help the environment. Groups of like-minded people meet through social media, where they also share pictures of their litter-picking sessions.
So we're getting ready to dive into the ocean to collect some trash that's been carried over by the storm that's happened this weekend.
One by one, the divers enter the ocean with sacks to carry the trash. The group heads to the area with the most waste. But on the way, they already spot a large abandoned net. It has been underwater for so long that it's got tangled up with the seaweeds. The divers cut the net from the seabed and carry it back to the shore. Back on the beach, the plovers are busy picking up all kinds of trash. Much of the work also takes place underwater. For the first time, the amount of ocean trash collected from seashores on Jeju Island last year amounted to over 20,000 tons. Nationwide, a total of 120,000 tons of marine waste was collected in 2021. Regional governments have hired people to do cleanups, but that is not enough, which is why this group of professional and hobby divers do what they do.
I like to play in the ocean, and when fish consume this broken styrofoam, the ocean will get sicker. I'm doing this because I want to see the ocean preserved.
After a couple of hours of strenuous work, the area is free of trash and the group swims back to where they began with sacks of trash in their hands. The bags are heavy, but the camaraderie of the group eases the burden.
It would be ideal if all the people around the world joined in with our efforts. But I hope at least the people who enjoy water sports won't throw away trash into the ocean.
The plovers say they will continue to do good for the planet one dive at a time. Lee Si-woo, Arirang News, Jeju.
Good Friday night. As you can see, there are wide gaps between daytime highs and morning lows. It's nearly double digits in the capital. With such a swift and dramatic transition, it's easy to catch a cold. So please dress warmly on your evening commute. And tomorrow, lows will be dipping down to below 20 degrees Celsius in most regions as a cold air mass approaches from the north. But temperatures will soar quickly in the afternoon. There will be no extreme heat, though, reaching 26 degrees in Seoul and Daejeon. But the main issue is the UV index, which is predicted to be very high across the country. So wear a wide-brimmed hat or bring your parasol to avoid strong sunshine. And we're lucky enough to enjoy more warm and sunny weather this weekend. Sunny spells should continue for the time being with slight rain in store, mainly in southern regions early next week. Have a glorious weekend, and let's take a look at the worldwide weather conditions.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.
The stage of global urban diplomacy will be Daejeon. UCLG, with 240,000 local governments from 140 countries around the world. No matter what you imagine, it all comes true in Daejeon. World Summit of Local and Regional Leaders.
UCLG Daejeon Congress 2022.
For the co-prosperity of the international logistics community, the 2022 FIATA World Congress will be held in Busan from September 11th to the 16th. The world's largest logistics-related event where association presidents, company CEOs, and related officials gather. A pathway to the future of world logistics policies and international cooperation. The 2022 FIATA Busan World Congress.
A global network representing Korea. Arirang TV. Introducing the unique charm of Korea to the world. Telling stories from Korea to the world. Connecting Korea to the world. Presenting Korea's today to the world. Showing Korea's perspectives to the world. Serving as a channel of communication for the past 25 years as a global network. 25th anniversary, Arirang TV's launching since 1997. Arirang.